I'm Reverend Markel Hutchins, CEO of Movement Forward Incorporated. We are a modern, inclusive, and solution-focused human and civil rights organization based in Atlanta, Georgia. Over the past several years, numerous law enforcement tragedies have divided Americans in many ways. All the while, crime and violence continues to increase in some of our most vulnerable communities. Officers continue to give their lives in the line of duty, and there are an alarming number of law enforcement professionals that are leaving the profession. I've led some of the largest protests and demonstrations in Atlanta, birthplace of the civil rights movement, but I recognize that marching and protesting alone won't get us to where we need to be. We have to come together. We need to find solutions. We need to find a way forward in every single community and in every neighborhood. There are no entities in our country that can do that like the faith community. They're places of hope. They're places of healing. Houses of worship are a place of mass action, and that's what we need in our country today. We need mass action to reduce the violence, to reduce the tensions, to increase safety, and build a community that Dr. King would have called the beloved community. I hope that each one of you will get involved and be a part of the solution. It's not enough to stand in one corner yelling "Our lives matter," and others standing in a different corner yelling "Our lives matter." We have to come together at tables of brotherhood and sisterhood. I hope you will go to faithandblue.org. We have put together every tool that you will need to host an event for National Faith and Blue Weekend. It has become the largest and most collaborative police community outreach project in American history. We want each one of you to get involved, to be a part of Faith and Blue Weekend, and let's work together and move our nation forward. Thank you so much, and we hope that you will get involved.
Hey, good morning, and welcome to the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial Fund. We exist to honor the fallen, to tell the story of American law enforcement, and to make it safer for those who serve. And one of the ways we do that is by connecting law enforcement with the communities they serve. What an incredible opportunity for us today to be the backdrop of this press conference. A couple weeks ago, I had the honor of having lunch with Reverend Markell, and I asked the Reverend, tell me what success looks like when it comes to Faith and Blue Weekend. And you're going to hear a little bit about that this morning. But when he connected his heart to his brain and he articulated his vision of what this effort can do for our country, it's truly amazing. So welcome. Enjoy the press conference and enjoy listening to Reverend Markell connect his heart to his brain.
Thank you, Ms. Ferranto. I'm Reverend Markell Hutchins. I am Chairman and CEO of Movement Forward Incorporated. We are a modern and inclusive human and civil rights organization based in Atlanta, Georgia, but I'm also national lead organizer of National Faith and Blue Weekend. We come today to the nation's capital, to this hallowed and sacred space called the National Law Enforcement Museum, because there's a sickness in our country of division and dissension. There's division and dissension with regard to how policing can be transformed, how communities can engage with law enforcement. There seem to be so many loud voices who are focused not on the things that we have in common, but the things that we have to disagree about. But we've never progressed as a nation when we segregate our morality, when we separate ourselves one from another. We have the capacity as a country and as a nation to turn our pain into power, to focus not on the things that divide us, but the things that unite us. That's what National Faith and Blue Weekend is all about. Figuring out a pathway forward. The challenges that we face in this country when it comes to policing, both with regard to police-involved tragedies that should never have happened, like George Floyd and so many others. But as well, we have to deal with crime and violence that is taking away too many of our young people, robbing too many of our seniors of their dignity and decency of being able to live in their homes in peace. We have to deal with both of those issues at the same time. We have the capacity. The question is, do we have the courage? I believe we do. And that's why today, with our national law enforcement partners and our sponsors, we're announcing National Faith and Blue Weekend 2021. This has become the largest and most collaborative police community outreach project in American history. Never before had all the organizations that you'll hear from today come together on a single police community outreach project. But the time is now. There's been too much division. There's been too much dissension. While there have been too many tragedies. So in the aftermath of these tragedies, we have to figure out how to turn our marching and our protest into action. I've been at the forefront of civil and human rights advocacy the sum total of my adult life. I had the benefit of being mentored by the likes of Coretta Scott King and John Lewis and Jesse Jackson. And while I was born a decade after Martin Luther King Jr. was killed, I believe that Dr. King was right, that our objective must not be to defeat our enemies, but to transform our adversaries into allies. That's a message that we want every faith community, every community organization, every law enforcement agency in our nation to embrace. There's been too much tension. And when the tension and the dissension and the rhetoric and the protests turn to riots, it's the most vulnerable in our communities that suffer. It's those people that need good public safety. So while I believe in human and civil rights, I've been leading marches and protests my whole life. The best march that we have today is to march hand in hand with our public safety professionals, to figure out a way forward. Too much fear and anxiety on all sides is what has gotten us to this place. But we need our nation to stand up. Dr. King used to talk about the difference in the vocal minority and the silent majority. The truth of the matter is, there was a recent study done by Gallup that said more than 80% of African Americans and Hispanics, and a larger portion of white Americans, want either the same or an increased level of law enforcement. That's the silent majority. We've given too much credit to the vocal minority, some of whom are legitimate advocates for social justice, but too many of whom are intentionally creating a movement of division and dissension that's not focused on solving problems, but perpetuating them. National Faith in Blue Weekend is an effort to give voice to the silent majority in our country. There's never been a movement for social change in America that was not anchored in the faith space. The faith community has always been the backbone of social change in the United States of America. It's time for the faith community to stand up and be counted on this subject matter. Issues around policing and criminal justice are the prevailing issues of our time. And National Faith in Blue Weekend is an effort like never before to bring the voices of the majority of the American people who recognize that change and transformation is necessary, but also recognize that law enforcement cannot do it by themselves. The law enforcement organizations that are partnered together and our sponsors recognize that we have to do some things differently. There needs to be some change and reform. There needs to be some legislative reform. But the true answers to the questions that the American people have, most especially those in communities that are most vulnerable, the answers to the questions about how we move forward as a nation after George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery and Tamir Rice and so many others, the answers about how we police with fairness and justice and equity, and at the same time engage communities in reducing violent crime, those answers will not be printed in a policy or procedures manual, nor in the ink of a piece of legislation. They will be imprinted in the hearts and minds of every law enforcement professional and every resident in every local community. There's a lot of talk today about the need for police reform, and there does need to be some reform. I think our partners would agree. But the greater need for reform is reformation of our culture. We need not just reform, we need to transform how communities and law enforcement see each other and work together. Because when we work around our commonalities and not focus on our differences, we see that there is more that unites us than there is that divides us. We need every law enforcement agency in this country to join this movement. We need every faith-based organization, every school, every social organization, every fraternity, every sorority to get involved. Go to www.faithandblue.org and be the change that you seek. This year we anticipate thousands of events happening in communities of every kind. During these events, law enforcement, faith-based and community organizations will come together and reach for one another, not just reaching out to one another. We can do this. We can change the environment. We can shift the discussion. We can reduce officer-involved tragedies. We can reduce officer deaths. We can get more young people who are educated and trained, interested in careers in law enforcement. But we cannot do this if we don't have the courage and capacity to sit together and reason together. The power to reduce crime and violence, the power to stop officer-involved tragedies, the power to stop assaults and attacks on law enforcement officers lie in the hands of these local communities. These communities where faith-based organizations, churches and synagogues and mosques and temples still have the largest number of volunteers of any kind. Those organizations should be resources for law enforcement in this moment in time. So with that, I'm going to bring on our law enforcement partners. You will see today that this is truly unprecedented. We have every single major national law enforcement association in our country and the nation's leading police union united together with the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, the U.S. Department of Justice, and more than 50 state police chiefs and sheriffs and prosecutors associations from coast to coast. Again, this is the largest and most collaborative police community outreach project in American history. So with that, I'm going to first introduce our sponsors who will make remarks in this order. We could not do this without the support of our sponsors. This effort is just over a year ago. And when I had this vision, I called together our law enforcement partners, our partners at the Department of Justice and Homeland Security, but we needed some resources to do it. So we called upon FirstNet, built with AT&T and the Motorola Solutions Foundation, and they answered the call. I hope that more corporations will get involved in actually solving problems, facilitating relationships between law enforcement and communities. We cannot continue to pick one side over another. And I'm thankful to Motorola Solutions and to FirstNet, built with AT&T, for recognizing that fact. So with that, I'm going to bring up Jack Malloy, who is Executive Vice President at Motorola Solutions and a board member of the Motorola Solutions Foundation. He will be followed by former Atlanta Police George Turner, who is a senior consultant with FirstNet, built with AT&T. Jack?
Thank you, Reverend Hutchins. The creation of safer cities and equitable, thriving communities sits at the core of the Motorola Solutions Foundation purpose. We firmly believe that communities are safer when there is more trust and collaboration between those who serve and the communities that they serve. That's why we're so honored to support the National Faith in Blue Weekend for the second consecutive year. Last year, the National Faith in Blue Weekend encompassed over 1,000 events in over 43 states. This year, we'd like to double the impact. Fundamentally, the impact that can have it is about sparking important dialogue and meaningful connections, ultimately helping us build bridges between the community and law enforcement. We're also grateful to our law enforcement leaders around the room tonight, as well as those community leaders. I'd also like to highlight and thank the sponsors as well. But we wouldn't be here today without the leadership of Reverend Mark L. Hutchins and Movement Forward. So I want to thank you. And I'd say we're a company that cares. We think the Motorola Solution Foundation is an exact replica of what we believe in. With all of the social justice issues that have come to a head here in the United States, we believe now, more than ever, it's a responsibility of corporations like Motorola Solutions and our foundation to stand up and be counted. And again, thank you, Reverend Hutchins. Thank you.
Good morning. I am George Turner, the former Atlanta Police Chief. I spent 35 years in our business. I'm also a principal advisor for FirstNet, built by AT&T. On behalf of the entire FirstNet team, and I think we've got a number of folk here, if you would just please stand, our FirstNet people, thank you for being here. On behalf of all of us, we'd like to thank today as being a part of strengthening our opportunities, strengthening our communities. We're proud to support the National Faith in Blue Weekend activities this year, just as we did last year on the inaugural weekend. Our business is bringing first responders and communities together with a wireless communication network built just for public safety. And it's events like these that make those ties even stronger. FirstNet exists to provide first responders nationwide with the communication capabilities to connect the connectivity that they need to achieve their mission. It is designed with the first responders, and we're working hard every day to meet our mission, which is helping public safety achieve theirs. And many thanks to the National Law Enforcement Museum for hosting us today. We're honored to support faith-based organizations and law enforcement professionals who are working together to foster an environment of problem solving, resolution, and also reconciliation. We'd like to thank you for this opportunity to being a part of this, this amazing national organization and moving forward to make our cities and our communities stronger. Thank you.
Thank you again to Chief Turner. The nation's largest and most powerful organizations are here today, every single one of them. And our next group of speakers will be the heads of each one of those organizations and associations. They will come in this particular order. Patrick Yos, the National President of the Fraternal Order of Police. He'll be followed by Anthony Chapa, the Executive Director of the Hispanic American Police Command Officers Association. Then Chief Patrick Ogden, National President of the International Association of Campus Law Enforcement Administrators. Then Chief Steve Castevens, immediate past President of the International Association of Chiefs of Police. He'll be followed by Baltimore County Chief Melissa Hyatt, who's a committee chair with the Major Cities Chiefs Association, and Sheriff Peter Katusian, President of Major County Sheriffs of America. Then we'll have another group of speakers.
Well, good morning. On behalf of the 364,000 members of the Fraternal Order of Police, let me tell you that we are honored to be in our second year of being part of this event. I think it's interesting or very emotional that we have this event where we have it today. Right outside the doors here. In addition to all of the historical data of how we've the years of law enforcement, how we came to be and how we've overcome adversity all of these years. But right outside these doors are some 22,000 names of people who went to work every single day in the service of their communities and failed to return home at the end of their shifts to their families. So it's easy when we look at what happened in the last 18 months and all of the never-ending, ever-changing challenges that we as a nation have overcome or continue to deal with. And look at what we're dealing with today, still to this day, where for a long period of time, those 800,000 men and women who showed up in communities across this country were demonized just by simply wearing their badge. And it really is, it's unfortunate because that's not who we are. Every single one of those officers go into their communities. They live in those communities. They're part of those communities. They're part of the churches. They're fathers. They're mothers. They're Sunday school teachers. They're volunteer firemen. They're in the National Guard. They're all very much invested in our communities. And the problem is we're not able to have dialogue. During this period of time, we'd rather talk at each other rather than with each other. And I'm convinced there's not a problem in this country we can't fix if we all sat down and and committed ourselves to finding real solutions to real problems. You know, my friends, we need to do some work in this country. The powers that law enforcement officers have, the very powers that we have in order to be able to police our communities are directly related to the trust and the relationships we have within our communities. I don't care what business you're in. I don't care if you sell a product or you have a service or whatever, just in daily life. At the end of the day, really what it comes down to is it's all about relationships. It's all about that interaction, about the common goals and the common respect of what we have for each other. And Faith in Blue gives us an opportunity to do just that. It gives us an opportunity to have that one conversation about who we are, personalizing who we are. When you know people and you listen to people and you respect people, then you find ways in order to be able to build those relationships. And Faith in Blue is an opportunity to do it, but it's not just a weekend. If we just do it one weekend, we really missed our point. Our point is that one weekend is to start that conversation, to continue that conversation, and to build those relationships within our communities, because a stronger community is going to become with a united community. So we're very honored to be part of this. Reverend Hutchinson, thank you very much for allowing us to continue to be part of this, and we're very excited at the opportunity across this country for our members to engage in those conversations in churches all across America. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Reverend. Thank you very much for the opportunity. I'm Anthony Chapa. I represent the Hispanic American Police Command Officers Association. We're also known as HAPCOA, and we're proud to be a founding partner of the National Faith in Blue Weekend. For over 45 years, the Hispanic American Police Command Officers, known as HAPCOA, has focused on improving community relations and safeguarding community trust. The National Faith in Blue Weekend is an extension of our primary mission, and it wholeheartedly supports the communities that we serve and we protect. HAPCOA knows that faith organizations offer our community support, which includes worship, training, development, childcare, job training, and when needed, emergency services, emergency care to include food, shelter, clothing. HAPCOA recognized years ago that the relationship between law enforcement and faith-based organizations, churches, synagogues, mosques, and temples was essential as we, law enforcement, if we were going to serve the communities in their time of need. HAPCOA supports the National Faith in Blue Weekend, and it encourages our members and members of our community to come together, to get involved, to unite on a common, meaningful ground of faith. Together, we can celebrate the human spirit, and we will renew and protect the public's trust in law enforcement. Thank you very much. We support. Thank you, sir.
Greetings. My name is Patrick Ogden, and I proudly serve as president for the International Association of Campus Law Enforcement Administrators. Our robust association of over 4,000 dedicated professionals representing over 1,000 institutions of higher education in 10 countries around the world is committed to global networking, problem solving, and establishing best practices. Put simply, we believe in working together and sharing resources to accomplish our collective goals. IACLEA is honored to have the opportunity to partner with National Faith in Blue Weekend in this noble effort to build stronger relationships between houses of worship and law enforcement entities. We are at a time of an unprecedented crossroads in our country, with challenges on many fronts. And at IACLEA, we recognize that collaboration between police agencies and faith institutions will enhance trust in the communities that we're sworn to serve. As we take time to reflect upon this past year and prepare for the years ahead, faith-based leaders have a unique opportunity to be catalysts for positive change by creating a culture of innovation through creative vision. I'm confident that brighter days are ahead based on partnerships like Faith in Blue that are committed to providing high-quality, contemporary, and forward-thinking programs to ensure that we align to rebuild trust and enhance accountability while forging a constructive path forward. I'm humbled to stand here today with our partnering organizations to join Faith in Blue to inspire communities across the country, especially on campuses, to host mutual gatherings centered on service project, athletic contest, picnics, forums, and other activities. On a more personal note, I've had the opportunity to work closely with Reverend Markel Hutchins and his Movement Forward team over the past several months. And in that capacity, I've witnessed his passion, enthusiasm, and tireless work ethic. I thank you for your support as well as your friendship, and I look forward to being stronger together because of amazing opportunities and initiatives like this. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Steve Cass-Stevens. I'm police chief in Buffalo Grove, Illinois, and I'm the immediate past president of the International Association of Chiefs of Police. And it's my pleasure to be here today, join with everyone else on behalf of the IACP to help recognize National Faith in Blue Weekend. The IACP is deeply committed to supporting police and communities in their efforts to engage in a productive dialogue, to form strong partnerships, and identify meaningful solutions. It's my hope that this event will be one of many in which our country can come together and build sustainable and trusting police-community relations. Stronger, safer communities are only possible if we're able to build a strong foundation on which they can all stand. By partnering with our faith-based communities, National Faith and Blue Weekend offers a unique way to reinforce connections between policing professionals and the communities that they serve. I strongly encourage all law enforcement agencies and associations in this country to join and participate in Faith and Blue Weekend. The IACP is honored to be included in this important initiative, and on behalf of our 31,500 members in 165 countries, I look forward to offering continued support. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Melissa Hyatt, Chief of Police for the Baltimore County Police Department, and I'm honored to be here today on behalf of the Major Cities Chiefs Association, representing police executives from the largest cities across the United States and Canada. We are pleased to be officially endorsing the National Faith and Blue Weekend initiative again this year and look forward to participating in numerous events in cities across our country. Building mutual trust and respect in our law enforcement community and the public is a vital tenet to effective and sound policing. Our daily encounters within the community present unique opportunities for us to connect, leave lasting positive impressions, and develop lifetime and lifelong relationships that are built upon a foundation of trust. Engaging in relational policing is one of the best methods for building this robust bond. The Major Cities Chiefs member agencies recognize the power and significance of community partnerships, particularly those within the faith community, as we know that our faith-based partners are stakeholders in the neighborhoods in which we serve. Behind the uniforms that we wear, we are people, many of whom live in the communities that we serve. Faith and Blue Weekend provides a mechanism for our law enforcement professionals and our community members to relate on common ground instead of focusing on our differences. Personally, I've had the privilege to participate in multiple Faith and Blue events in Baltimore County, Maryland last year. Witnessing the positive interactions and connections that were formed, as well as seeing smiles and hearing laughter during a time that has been truly difficult for all of us, was truly uplifting. I know that our entire community, including our police officers, were stronger and more resilient as a result of having participated. As we make our final preparations for 2021 Faith and Blue Weekend, I am elated to join my fellow Major Cities Chiefs as we stand united with our faith communities. Thank you, and thank you, Reverend.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Peter Katujian. I'm the Sheriff of Middlesex County, Massachusetts, and I'm currently the President of Major County Sheriffs of America. I'm joined by my colleague, Mike Chapman from Loudoun County, Virginia, who's also our Vice President of Homeland Security. We join today in full support by Major County Sheriffs of America for Faith and Blue. I'd like to say a special thank you to Masha for for hosting this in this beautiful facility. I want to say one short mention, though. As sheriffs, we detain people. We hold them. We have correctional facilities, as do our states. Oftentimes, the very men and women that are these corrections professionals, these corrections officers, are never appreciated in the true way that we should appreciate all law enforcement as well as police. I love the fact that you have something dedicated to, I call them the silent guardians of public safety, when many others forget, even within law enforcement. So I want to say thank you for that very much. And Reverend Hutchins, thank you so much for your leadership and your spirit. I might be a long way away from my hometown of Waltham and my home community of Middlesex County, but I feel closer to my community after hearing you speak and being part of this, as well as, quite honestly, closer to my God. So thank you very much for your leadership in this as well. I just want to say thank you to our fellow law enforcement leaders, other great men and great women of faith, faith in God, and importantly, a faith in our community, too. And for those who care about our communities, to celebrate our shared mission. As I mentioned, Major County Sheriffs is proud to join and help drive Faith and Blue in October. Now, on their face, the missions of a local congregation, a county sheriff's office or police department, a federal entity like a cop's office, and a large corporation like FirstNet built with AT&T or Motorola Solutions, by the way, who also support our organization. I want to say thank you very much for that as well. Many might not realize how much we all have in common. But in my role as president of Major County Sheriffs of America, which is a collective of the largest county sheriffs in the entire country, serving on over 120 million Americans across this country, I can say that we see an incredible overlap of this work. And you can see it too, whether it's informally, every day, whenever a sheriff or a chief holds a town meeting in a parish hall, connecting with that community, or a pastor organizes a youth event and asks the local sheriff's office or police department to send a community outreach team. Or you can see it in those very places of corrections, those very places of detention, where the faith community tends to the spiritual needs of those that are incarcerated at a very difficult time in their lives, crucially important to their well-being inside our facility and their well-being as they re-enter our communities as well. Informally, as we celebrate, I guess you'd say, Faith in Blue, October 8th through the 11th, Reverend, I'm going to mention those dates because we should all be rallying to drive this effort out and larger than it has ever been before, because quite honestly, we need this now more than ever before in our history of policing right now. This is really important to us. We serve the same populations, we serve them with all our hearts. I often say that being a sheriff is the most direct form of public service and public safety imaginable because we are directly elected by our communities to serve them directly. I get to work every day with individuals in great need who are not very much different from myself and were not brought up in homes much different than my own home, but found a different path in life, and from many of you as well. You know, these are issues, people that are dealing with issues from mental health and substance use disorder. You know, they've been justice involved and they've had failures in their lives, but they're just looking for a way out. They're looking to live happily and healthily like some of the other people they get to see in their communities, but they can't find that path. These are not those people, they're our people. They're not that community, they're our community. And I think everyone in this room and those that are watching understand this as well. I say this all the time, there but for the grace of God go I or any of us in this very room. That's what Faith in Blue Weekend is about. It is to share our common bonds and our shared sense of community. And of course, you don't need to take my word for it, and this is something I cite an awful lot in my community. You don't have to look much further than the book of Matthew. For I was hungry and you gave me food. I was thirsty and you gave me drink. I was a stranger and you took me in. I was naked and you clothed me. I get emotional every time I read this, right? I was sick and you visited me. I was in prison and you came to me. I was in prison and you came to me. The way that we love and care for the least of us is the way that we show our love and commitment, not just to our community, but to the greatest of us. Folks, we share this very same mission to care for one another, to serve one another, and that's why I'm here today to represent Major County Sheriffs of America and to join you. We are eager to drive and attend events in October, never forgetting that these types of events occur really throughout the year, every day, right? We got to make sure we're doing them every day, but then we have a special focus in October. As I said before, Reverend, and to all the faith leaders that may be watching or that are here today, I may be far from my community, my hometown, but I feel closer to my community right now and closer to my God. Thank you very much for your service, sir. Thank you.
We need every police department, every sheriff's office, every prosecutor, every U.S. Attorney's office, every state agency, every office of the FBI and Homeland Security and Customs and Border Patrol and U.S. Marshals. We need every church, every synagogue, every mosque, every temple, every school, every community organization to visit www.faithandblue.org, faithandblue.org. The resources are plentiful. There's a planning toolkit that every community can use. We've made this a turnkey process, again, thanks to our sponsor. Everything that any community organization or faith-based organization and any law enforcement will need to be successful for planning Faith in Blue Weekend is found at faithandblue.org. We have a wonderful professional staff that is operating and organizing across the country that will be there to be supportive of any community organization and any law enforcement agency that wants to get engaged, and we need everyone to get engaged. I want to be clear. Faith in Blue Weekend is not a religious or sectarian effort. This is not about religion. Last year, in the first year, there were more than 35 different faith communities that participated. But these faith communities have a unique set of influences and relationships that we need to reduce crime and violence and increase the trust. Our next group of speakers will include, first, Ms. Kim Cravens, Executive Director of the National Association of Women Law Enforcement Executives. She will be followed by Major Sabrina Harper. She's the Region 3 President for the National Association, the National Black Police Association. She will be followed by the Honorable Billy West, National President of the National District Attorneys Association. He will be followed by immediate past President Linda Williams from the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives, or NOBLE. Then Mr. Matt Silverman, National Executive Vice President of the Federal Law Enforcement Officers Association, and Mr. Jonathan Thompson, Executive Director and CEO of the National Sheriff's Association. Ms. Craven?
Thank you, Reverend, and thank you to the National Law Enforcement Officers Fund and Museum for having us here today. It's great to see everyone. Kim Craven, I am the Executive Director of the National Association of Women Law Enforcement Executives. I'm pleased to be here with the other national leaders of law enforcement organizations to put the power of all of us behind Faith in Blue. The more that we do together, the further we will go to change our communities and transform policing. On behalf of the NALI President, Shannon Trump, and the rest of the board, I am happy to lend the support of NALI to the Faith in Blue weekend. NALI is dedicated to raising the number of women in law enforcement from 13% to 30%. In fact, much of our activity is focused on the 30 by 30 initiative, which aims to raise that number by the year 2030. We believe that Faith in Blue weekend is not only a way to gauge police, community, and clergy together in a powerful show of support for peaceable communities, but it also shows that we're serious about diversity and inclusion, and that will help us reach our goal and transform policing. During such a tumultuous time in our nation's history, NALI is eager to engage in the activities that bring people together and break down barriers. From the protests in our communities, social media feeds with disheartening comments about policing, we in law enforcement need to be the part of that community that makes the change. Together with our faith-based community, we can do that. From cookouts, distributing food, sporting events, and gathering in prayer, Faith in Blue Weekend gives us all that opportunity to step forward and engage, listen, and show that law enforcement professionals are not only indeed active members of our communities, but that we have a human side. It gives us that chance to put our guard down and really engage in activities that show communities that we care for them. The members of the faith-based community have those connections to folks from all walks of life. What better partners for us in law enforcement to connect to everyone in our community? We've seen the power of that partnership change very difficult conversations into meaningful dialogue. The members of our faith-based communities have helped us develop safe spaces for community and law enforcement officials to come together. These are the platforms that help us develop and enhance our relationships with our community. From the smallest to the largest of our law enforcement agencies, there's a way for everyone to participate in Faith in Blue. At NALI, we're excited to help our members continue to grow their efforts with Faith in Blue. We want to see the numbers double from last year of people participating. Use the planner. Reach out to us. Any one of the organizations that are here today are eager to help your efforts to participate in Faith in Blue. We encourage you to plan an event, big or small. Make many of them. Have the churches included, have the schools included, have your youth organizations included. Reach out to someone that you've never worked with before and invite them to come along with you on Faith in Blue weekend to make your community as strong as it can be. Then reach out to your neighboring agencies and make sure that they're participating as well. Together, we can do this. We can be the change our communities want to see. The passion and the commitment of this group is second to none. Nolly couldn't be prouder to be part of this event for the second year in a row, and we certainly thank the Reverend and the Passion for his team for bringing us all together again for Faith in Blue Weekend 2021. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Sabrina Tabb Harper, a major at the Baltimore City Sheriff's Office. Thank you, Reverend Hutchins and the Faith in Blue organizers for this opportunity. The National Black Police Association started in 1972, where 13 officers met for various issues that were going on in different areas throughout the United States. Today, we host education and training conferences and assist law enforcement personnel with issues within our country. Faith in Blue re-energizes the mission of the National Black Police Association to increase the awareness of the community and to be the conscience of the criminal justice system and to enhance the quality of life in the African American community. In many places throughout the country, there are populations that are underserved, marginalized, and frequently over-policed. If you improve these communities, everyone benefits. National Faith in Blue Weekend 2021. As we are transformed by the renewing of our minds, we look forward to a robust and transparent national discussion, because now is always the time for justice and accountability. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Billy West, and I'm the president of the National District Attorneys Association, and we're proud to be a part of Faith in Blue Weekend 2021. Our organization represents over 5,000 prosecutors across this country. It's the oldest and largest organization to do so, and we represent 2 out of every 3 prosecutorial offices in this country. Our theme this year for our organization is seeking justice while serving our communities. We seek justice for victims of crime every day, and we partner with our local, state, and law enforcement partners, national law enforcement partners, to do that. But we also partner with our faith-based organizations to support these victims of all crimes, but particularly violent crimes. We also serve our communities in many ways that a lot of people don't know about. District attorneys across the state participate in treatment courts, many diversion programs, and many types of alternative dispositions. And the reason I mention this is that every one of these partnerships is one with law enforcement, but also generally always with the faith-based community while we try to do this. In fact, this year, one of our initiatives is a community engagement initiative where we try to encourage and support the local prosecutor to engage with their community, the school system, the government, law enforcement, the public, but also our faith-based communities. I can think of a couple examples in my hometown of Fayetteville, North Carolina. About 13 or 14 months ago, we all saw the horrific images of the homicide of George Floyd. The first event that I attended after that, seeing those horrific images, was hosted by our largest African American church, and it was a community conversation about what we have seen, how we were processing it, and more importantly, how we could improve and make improvements going forward. Also, my office has an annual expungement clinic where we provide a cost-free way for those that are eligible to clean their record. And the reason I mention this program is we do partner with law enforcement, many in the criminal justice system. But our most critical partners are our faith-based community. We reach out to them to get the word out, and we actually host these clinics in our places of worship across our community. Finally, just a couple of weeks ago, we started a gun violence task force because we know that we have a nationwide rise in violent crime, particularly homicides, and I've seen the same in our community. And what we've done in this task force is to try to encourage enforcement on the back end by our local, state, and federal partners. But we also reached out, again, first to our faith-based community because we have to do prevention on the front end and education on the front end, and there's nobody better to do that. So we again thank Reverend Hutchins and everybody involved in Faith in Blue Weekend. There are approximately 60 million Americans that attend weekly services in over 350,000 different places of worship. Those are essential partners to what we're trying to do to for Faith in Blue Weekend. Thank you.
Hope is the belief that destiny will not be written for us, but by us, by the men and women who are not content to settle for the world as it is, but who have the courage to make the world as it should be. Good morning. I bring you greetings on behalf of the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives, NOBLE. I am immediate past President Linda Williams, and I do bring you greetings on behalf of our national president, Frederick Thomas. You know, as a little girl in Memphis, Tennessee, there was two entities that were there. That was the church, which we refer to as faith-based, and the police. And even today, it is still the cornerstone of our communities for galvanizing the change that we need to see, the transformation. And you know, even after this tumultuous year, it is my hope that we emerge stronger, wiser, and better, but a greater respect of our fellow man as human beings. Noble stands proud to be a continued partner, and yet this second annual faith-based community outreach, as we know together, we can be the change that we wish to see. God bless each of you.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Matthew Silverman, and I am representing the Federal Law Enforcement Officers Association. I serve as the National Executive Vice President, and unfortunately, Larry Cosme, who's the National President, could not make it out today. First, what an amazing event, just seeing all these law enforcement leaders together and faith-based leaders together. It doesn't get any better than this. We all know that there's issues in law enforcement. We all know that there's issues in the community, and we need to do something about it, and I'm glad to be part of doing something about it. For anybody out there that doesn't know what FLEO is, we are the largest nonprofit, nonpartisan professional organization representing our federal law enforcement officers out there. We have over 30,000 members, but not just do we have 30,000 members, we represent every law enforcement officer out there. We're up on Capitol Hill like many of these other organizations, and we're fighting for what needs to be done to help our law enforcement officers, which will ultimately help our communities. So, I took a couple words from my great boss, and I'm going to read a little speech over here that I wrote up, and I'm going to go off key a lot because that's how I am. But to God be the glory for this beautiful day, which has brought us together, all of these law enforcement officers, law enforcement executives, and faith-based leaders. That's amazing. In my 20-year career, I have never seen the sacrifices made by law enforcement professionals forsaken the way that they are today. Far too often, media outlets and community leaders force the men and women in blue to shoulder the blame for the shortcomings of all of us as people. Personally, I find nothing productive in playing the blame game. However, I do find a great value in extreme ownership. I will be the first to defend those who serve us as law enforcement officers. I am extremely grateful for the service and sacrifice made by the men and women in law enforcement and the communities that they protect on a daily basis. While I do not blame the officers for the current state we face as a nation. I do believe we have a responsibility. We have a moral obligation to do all we can to make a positive difference in the lives of everybody. I know we are all tired. I know we are all exhausted from working doubles, from working weekends, from working holidays, and then some. I know that it may feel like we have nothing more to give, but that's when we need to reach deep down and we need to keep moving forward. This is where faith becomes so important. We need something beyond the normal friendships and people out there. We need something that we can dig deeper down, and that's where the faith base and the faith in blue means so much. We need to continue to put others before ourselves and give God the glory. The world needs more people that care more about each other and less about themselves. We need to be compassionate. We need to be empathetic. We need to realize that people think differently and consider their welfare more important than your desires. Because while we are all tired and we are all exhausted, nobody is better at protecting the flock than us, the sheepdogs. If not us, then who? Every time we put on our badges, we need to remember something. The best thing that you can give to someone is your presence, your time, and your love. America deserves hope, and it is within each of us to give it to them. So one of the things that FLEOA recently did was we created something called the FLEOA 111 Project. And what the FLEOA 111 Project is we talked about police reform, and nobody in this room can say that we don't need police reform. You can't have the same thing for 100 years and say, this is fine, we're going to keep going with it. So one of the things that we started was the FLEOA 111 Project, and we're hosting martial arts seminars and defensive tactics seminars around the country. We've done 3 so far, and we have one coming here for Police Week as well. And these are discounted Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and Judo professionals from all over the country that are coming out. But it's not just to teach them the proper ways of doing defense tactics. It's to limit the risk of law enforcement, but also limit risk of these citizens or suspects or criminals that we might have to deal with on a daily basis. The more that we can limit the deaths that we've talked about earlier, the more that we can give training to our officers, the better off we will all be. Thank you very much. Thank you, Reverend, for everything that you're doing. Thank you for all you out there and all the wonderful citizens that we protect. Thank you.
Good morning to everyone. I believe I'm the last speaker. Wow. Sheriffs, chiefs, agents, officers, deputies, attorneys, leaders, executives. I want to talk to those in the audience and perhaps to one or two that might start something that couldn't have been done without their initiative. I think to say that it's an honor and a privilege to be here is the greatest understatement of all. There are 2 entities that were alluded to and spoken about that are the cornerstones of our country. The country was formed because of faith, the freedom to have faith. The country was formed to protect those of faith, to protect those that needed protection. On October 8th through the 11th, cynicism should die. Doubt should perish. Optimism should prevail. People who believe, whether in God or what other higher level being, should prevail. For those that believe that we in this society have moral obligations, we need to come together, whether in a synagogue or a church, or whether it's in a gymnasium or a trailer. Spend those 3 days fully engaging the question of why we Americans, the United States, are here and why we exist. We exist for the communities that we serve. We exist for the brothers and sisters that are neighbors. We exist to improve our collective lots in life. No one can be left down. No one can discern trouble from hatred unless you ignore it. On October 8th, as you've heard, it's a start. It's another beginning. And it should, as Sheriff Katusian said, it should happen every weekend and every day. But now I'm going to challenge those at home, to our sheriffs, to our deputies. Pick up the mantle. And I challenge all of you not to double, but to quintuple the events in your community. We have a lot of problems in this country. No one can dispute that. And as you've heard from my peers, colleagues, and previous speakers, law enforcement has its foibles, but so does faith. But cynicism is going to die on that weekend. For the media, look for the positive. For our teachers, challenge the need. For our families, stand up, be counted, and question not the bad. That will be there after the Monday. But question the good that can and should come from this weekend. I'll leave you with a couple of thoughts. The two foundational entities I spoke of, faith and law enforcement, they're mentioned in our Constitution, and they are the principal mentioning points of our Constitution. That is what we all should be believing. But more importantly, that faith in God, and support of our communities is at the cornerstone of what this is about. Between now and then, too many people will die from criminal behavior. We know it. Officers and deputies will lose their lives or be injured. Children, small children, unfortunately, in our communities, urban or rural, will die, whether from drugs, human trafficking, domestic violence. But these men and women in this room have one obligation every day, and that is to serve and protect the communities they live in. I challenge our churches, our synagogues. I challenge our priests, our reverends, our mullahs. Stand up, stand tall, and say, we need each other. What do we do? How do we do it? But most importantly, cynicism shall die that weekend. Thank you very much.
America, Americans, perhaps the greatest olive branch of American history has been issued within the last hour. America's law enforcement professionals need our country. They need the faith community. They need our school. Visit faithandblue.org. There's a planning toolkit under the resources tab. Everything that you will need to be successful, making a difference, coming together to change the narrative, to shift the discussion from us versus them to us and them. This is the way forward. This is how we reduce officer-involved tragedies. This is how we reduce the assaults and attacks on our law enforcement professionals. The greatest fear, the greatest challenge that we have in this moment is fear of one another. That's what drives so much crime and violence. That's what drives so many assaults and attacks on officers. So again, we need every faith community, every law enforcement agency to get involved. I want to recognize and thank our partners, as well as those who did not speak today, the U.S. Department of Justice, Office of Community-Oriented Policing Services on behalf of the U.S. Department of Justice, the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, the Social Impact Executive Director, Corinda Washington, is here, and the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Local Outreach is here, Britton Yee. I want to thank the National Police Foundation, the Police Executive Research Forum. The Police Foundation is represented by Chief Dean Esserman. The Police Executive Research Forum, those are the two major leading think tanks in law enforcement. Their Technical Assistance Director from Perth is here, Jessica Tolliver. The International Brotherhood of Police Officers, the National Association of Assistant U.S. Attorneys. I want to thank the National Narcotics Officers Association Coalition. I want to thank the law enforcement executives who are here. The Chief of Police of the Washington, D.C. Metropolitan Police Department, Chief Robert Conti, is here. The Loudoun County, Virginia Sheriff, who is, again, Vice President of Major County Sheriffs, Mike Chapman, is here. I want to thank Montgomery County Police Chief Marcus Jones and Prince George's County Maryland Police Chief Malik Aziz, who are here. We want to thank the more than 50 different professional and law enforcement associations. We have built partnerships with chiefs and or sheriff's associations in 45 of the 50 states. We're working as hard as we can to build a movement in this country. And it's time for the American people, most especially our faith communities, to get involved. They want to be engaged. They want to make a difference. And we believe we've created the resources that are necessary to unlock the keys to being engaged for the faith community. We have every state involved, with the exception of West Virginia, Louisiana, Texas, North Carolina, and Arkansas, and my staff is working every day. I want to thank, I've got the best staff in the world. Thank you all for all of the hard work that you have done. Thank you to our faith-based partners across the country and the Christian, both Protestants and Catholics. I want to especially thank our significant partner in the Episcopal Church, but the Catholic dioceses and archdioceses across the country, the AME churches, the Baptist churches, the United Methodist churches, the Lutheran, other faith-based organizations, the Muslim Council of America, the Jewish organizations, all connected and partnering together with us. Why do we do this? We do this not for religious purposes, but we do this because of the officers that give themselves in service every single day. It's not about me. It's not about any of our law enforcement partners. It's about the officers that risk their lives, like my good friend, Atlanta police officer Kevin Johnson, who's a wonderful family man. Chief, I want him to go home to his sons every night. We do this for people like my mother, 73-year-old widow, who is the best human being I've ever known. I want my mother to be able to go to Walmart or Target without fear of being attacked. We do this for people like my 14-year-old son, who's the best kid I've ever known. I want him to live in a world where he will be judged by the content of his character, by every law enforcement professional and every one of his colleagues. We do this for the officers whose names are on that wall of remembrance outside of the memorial. We do this for the officers that gave themselves in service to protect our democracy on January 6th. We do this because we have faith in our collective humanity and faith in one another. Thank you, and God bless you. Can we get a picture? Can we get a picture, please?